Welcome back to an exciting episode of Cyber Defense TV. I'm your host, Gary Malewski, and the publisher of Cyber Defense Magazine. Sitting in my hot seat today is a very special guest, Andrew Loshman. He is the Chief Operating Officer of FieldEffect.com. The company is Field Effect at FieldEffect.com. We're talking about next generation threat surface management, incident detection and handling, and some really cool things like the Cyber Range and Noble. But let's start with Covalence. Andrew, welcome, and tell us all about who you are and what you do.
Thank you. Great to be here. So I'm Andrew Loshman. I'm with Field Effect, and Field Effect provides cybersecurity solutions in a number of different domains. Our flagship offering is Covalence, which is a managed detect and response service, if you look at it in terms of the language that we're using these days. So Covalence offers deep insight, risk reduction, and threat detection across your entire network, and it satisfies the needs of SMEs in particular. We also have the Cyber Range, which is a point-and-click internet-in-a-box internet simulation capability, and then we have Noble as well, which is a test automation and security testing framework.
Now, it's a rare but noble endeavor for a company to deploy cybersecurity threat detection and response technology that you self-test with your own tool. Can you tell us just quickly about Noble and how people use it?
Sure. When you think about the complexities of something like Covalence, where you're developing network monitoring tools, you're developing cloud security monitoring tools, and you're developing endpoint agents across multiple platforms and operating systems, Mac OS, Windows, Linux. The ability to test and ensure that you've validated the behavior of your applications in a realistic environment is really important. And so we use Noble ourselves to, as part of our development process, to validate that our endpoint agents are indeed built the way that we expect them to be built in terms of their reliability, their interactions with other software, and their ability to detect threats. And so Noble is a tool that we use internally, as well as, of course, is used by our customers around the world.
Very cool. And moving up the food chain to Cyber Range, this is amazing that you can deploy training and simulation of cybersecurity threats and risks to SMEs who might never have been able to afford a solution like that, and I think get great results, better training, less infections.
Right. Field Effect supports both enterprise and SMEs. In the case of Cyber Range, we support a number of large enterprises that use Cyber Range to build security test and simulation environments. So if you think about traditional red team, blue team exercises, as well as guided courses where you can step IT administrators through progressive exercises in a highly realistic environment, multiple NAT environments, automated actions, responsive capabilities to simulate other humans in the network, even though you're a single student or IT administrator within that environment. So we support those kinds of complex use cases, and we do so in a way that allows our customers to run it on their own network, or we can host it for them ourselves. And that's where SMEs come into play, which is SMEs face precisely the same cyber threats as enterprise organizations do, but they don't necessarily have the same resources or capabilities. And with respect to Cyber Range, we say that you can't buy experience on Amazon, and it's really experience that makes the difference in terms of whether or not you've practiced what it's like to respond to a cybersecurity incident, whether you've practiced what it actually looks like on a network and on a host when somebody's attacking you. And the best practitioners, one of the biggest things in cybersecurity these days is that it's really hard to find qualified individuals. And so back to the experience on Amazon comment, having a Cyber Range allows you to build that experience into your organization. And from an SME space, just consider for a second the almost rote emails that we send out about user awareness and to be aware of phishing and to identify whether or not the person sending you the email was really the person that sent you the email. I think it's a little bit unreasonable to expect that in an SME that everybody will actually understand how to do that. And so in a cyber range environment, you can actually recreate your network, your office environment, and walk people through how do you examine the header of an email in Outlook? How do you take a look at some of the security features and do that reliably? And from a business perspective, what CyberRange allows you to do is, of course, track the progress of your users with reporting to validate that people have actually done it.
That's fantastic. You know, most SMEs are, first, they don't have the resources to build. It sounds like you built a network in a box for them. Quickly point click, recreate a real world environment, deploy real threats, but in a safe virtual world where they're not going to harm their company.
That's right. And internet in a box is exactly the right term. I think that in 2021, it's no longer good enough to simply have a virtual machine, a single virtual machine running Windows XP that is the victim box in your environment, and you've got 2 or 3 people attacking the same system. We need to evolve beyond that and make it realistic in terms of domain names that appear in your simulation, to have a safe environment where you can actually use malware. You can have multiple hosts communicating across a complex network if you want. Of course, you can always make a simple environment in CyberRange, but you can also make it more realistic and more complex.
Maybe even enticing for insider threats to think they're in the real company network. Keep an eye on the bad guys. So there are insider threats. There are employees who accidentally, click on the link, they get social engineered. That's where Covalence comes into effect. And this is not just point, click, deploy a product or a solution in the cloud. This is a team effort where you're helping manage the incidents and the responses and keeping the breach damage down to nil. Can you tell us about that?
Right. In cybersecurity, I think it's a useful thing to come back to basics. And what are you trying to do? To achieve cybersecurity, what we like to talk about is situational awareness. And you can define that as knowing your systems, knowing the threats to your systems, and then knowing what to do in response to those threats. Now, that's an easy thing to say, but it is a deceptively difficult thing to do in practice. And that is the problem that we're helping our customers solve with Covalence and Covalence MDR, where we operate in partnership with our clients to provide deep visibility into their network. And we do that with high resolution network sensors, world-class endpoint agents for Mac OS, Linux, and Windows, as well as sophisticated cloud-native monitoring capabilities for, say, Microsoft 365, Google G Suite, and many other cloud platforms. And it's having that visibility into 2 things. The first is, what are the risks on the network? We all know that patch management, vulnerabilities on your network are very difficult to, patch management is very difficult to do. It's a hard process. And so we help with that. We help with it by not only identifying unpatched systems, but we also put some thought into it so that we're not simply saying, there's 10,000 vulnerabilities on your network, go solve that. We look at it through the lens of an attacker. We understand what vulnerabilities have remote exploitation capability. And then we boil that down to make it as easy as possible and prioritize for our customers to do the things that are going to make their network more secure. Now, I said there were 2 things. So that's the risk reduction. But on the other side, of course, is the active threats. And through our endpoint agents, through our network monitoring, and through our cloud security monitoring capabilities, we will identify active threats that are in motion, whether that's a suspicious process that might be running on a system, command and control communications that we've identified with our network sensor, or a compromised Microsoft 365 account that perhaps a user has been phished. And so we tie that all together, and what we do is deliver that in as easy to use format as possible. I can talk about our I guess, alerting mechanism or system.
And reporting too. Reporting is so important, especially for due care and due diligence, for regulatory compliance, or maybe leveraging your reports so I can sit down with the cyber insurance company and get a discount.
Yes. And it'll be interesting to see how that market evolves over the coming years. I'm sure it's getting increasingly difficult to insure businesses that don't necessarily have, as you were mentioning, some of the basic pieces in place that regulators, customers, or even network operators themselves would expect to be in place. And so reporting is provided through Covalence in a couple different ways. The most common way that somebody's going to interact with our system and our service is through something we call an ARO. An ARO, you can think of it like an alert, but it's unique in the sense that we divide it into 3 categories. So A, is there an action required by you? R, do we have a recommendation for improving your network security? Or O, is there an observation related to network security for your organization, but there is no immediate threat identified? In an ARO, instead of a traditional alert that just simply provides technical jargon and an ambiguity as to whether or not you need to do something, whether this is significant, how significant is it, an ARO provides the issue. It provides context and a description of what that issue is. So there's a remote brute forcing attack on your network. Why do I care about that? Well, it could lead to somebody compromising your network. Okay, now I understand. And then we provide specific concrete recommendations for what to do moving forward. So how do you address this issue? And then, of course, through our managed service, you also have our team that you can work with. We call it our concierge service to help remediate that. And that's really a partnership type experience that we really like to espouse with our clients.
So, Andrew, how easy is it for an SME to deploy Covalence? And what if they have offices all around the globe? How easy and how quick can you get deployed, and how scalable are you for those SMEs that might cross continents?
Absolutely. Covalence is designed to be as easy to deploy or as low lift as possible. Getting cybersecurity, great cybersecurity into the hands of as many practitioners and businesses as possible is really our mission. And to do that effectively, it needs to be priced well, but it also needs to be easily deployable. And with respect to cloud monitoring, we can actually deploy that in minutes with you. There's no hardware, no software required, and you'll get results almost immediately. We get to work and we're analyzing data. We have sophisticated human and machine-driven analytics. UEBA, user and entity behavioral analysis, is a big part of what we do there, and it's all very easy to deploy. With respect to our endpoint agents, also industry standard installers, there's no configuration required. You just install them and they will work out the rest for you. And then with respect to network monitoring, you get high resolution visibility into your on-premise network if you have one. And it's really an appliance. It just has 3 color-coded cables, built-in network tap, and a power cord. And that's all you need to do. You just plug it in and go.
So Covalence is almost plug and play. And, you know, the question I have, knowing that we've shifted, before COVID, it was 3% telecommuting. Now, post-COVID, it's over 50% and growing, of people working from home on, you know, poor hygiene home computers, not following corporate protocols. Maybe they're in on the corporate VPN, maybe not. Maybe they were using the single sign-on properly. Maybe they've been, you know, shadow ITing things. With that agent of yours, it sounds like you can help solve this big post-COVID dilemma too.
And I think that hits on the head of why it's so important to have a holistic approach, because networks, even from a day in, day out basis pre-pandemic, were changing continually. And the essence of great cybersecurity is visibility into your network, whatever your network means. And of course, we've had a shift over the last year to work from home type environments where you have VPN devices, you have users that are doing professional work on perhaps their home computer, and you may not have visibility into that aside from being able to monitor their access to your Microsoft 365 tenant and their access into your network. But you also have corporate devices that are deployed remotely. How do you ensure that they're secure? How do you ensure that you have visibility into the data that is being protected on that system and likely to be attacked? And we had a case recently where a customer had our endpoint agent deployed. It was a work from home user, and that system ended up becoming compromised. We detected it and alerted through an ARO the network operator. But what was interesting is while they could cut off the user's VPN connection, they could not access the system remotely. And what was worse is that when they tried to reach out to the user, now traditionally you would walk down from the IT department, go and grab the computer and take it from there. The user wasn't answering their phone. And so with the Covalence endpoint agent, fortunately, we were able to take some active action on behalf of the customer to shut that system down and isolate it so that remediation could take place safely. So the environment's quite complex, and it is important to have endpoint agents deployed.
Fantastic. So I can get next gen MDR for a price I can afford for a small to medium sized enterprise up and running quickly with Field Effect. Something I haven't seen elsewhere.
Yeah, I think the insidious thing about the cybersecurity market is that cyber threats affect businesses of all size pretty much equally. And so if you think about the threat from ransomware or other threats, they're relatively indiscriminate. And so SMEs face precisely the same threat as enterprises, but without the financial or person capability to be able to defend against it. And so Covalence is an easy deploy solution that we've built, and we've priced it accordingly so that an SME business owner can afford it.
Sounds great. Andrew, is there anything that you want to share that we missed with our viewers and our listeners?
I think my main message would be that great cybersecurity is within reach, and that cybersecurity is a problem that's addressable. And it's addressable not through heroic efforts, but through well understood and supportable processes. And so with Covalence, we help you reduce your risk, your attack surface, and then we also help you identify active threats to your network. And we do so in a simple to use and a simple to deploy manner.
So for companies that want to make their apps better and harder, get noble, for government agencies, maybe even smart cities to get their employees safe and secure before the next breach, get the cyber range, and all the rest of us can get a cyber range. We can get Covalence. We can all afford you from the SME in any vertical, up and running quickly anywhere in the globe.
That's it. Field Effect is deployed all across the planet: Australia, Canada, United States, and Europe.
Great. So Andrew Loshman, Chief Operating Officer of Field Effect, thank you so much for making it through my hot seat. We're going to send our viewers and our listeners to FIELDEFFECT.com, fieldeffect.com, and then come back next time for another exciting episode of Cyber Defense TV.